PNC News First is presented by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Pizza Hut, we're taking pizza to where it's never been before. Taco Bell, the only place where you live Moss. Colgate, the #1 brand recommended by dentists. And IT&D.
PNC News First, broadcasting live in high definition from Tumon, Guam, on KEQI and KTGM, and on KPPI on Saipan. Here is your PNC News team.
Half a day you're watching PNC's News First. We're live from our broadcast center in Akanta. I'm Ayana Shad. Thanks for tuning in. Topping our newscast tonight. The search for justice for Bert continues as the man who stands accused in his death is once again back in court in preparation to go to trial a second time.
Mark Tory Jr. is back to square one, maintaining his innocence in the shooting death of fellow police officer Albert Piolo. The tale of two police officers out for a night of drinking and partying, which ended with the tragic death of one of them, will once again play out in court as Tory's previous conviction and 8-year sentence was overturned by the Supreme Court last month and sent back to the trial courts. Tory appeared in court today before Superior Court Judge Michael Berdalio for a criminal trial setting, requesting that any bail be exonerated. This was quickly opposed by the government, who wishes to maintain all conditions set during the first trial.
With respect to the remand, the court will vacate the conviction pursuant to the mandate. The defendant, however, will still be held on the same bail conditions as previously. The case is not dismissed.
Tory's attorney, Jay Areola, had requested that Tory's bail be modified. Instead of the $250,000 property bond, he is asking that Tory continue to be released on a $5,000 personal recognizance bond, a request that the government is against.
Well, until he files some papers and let me see his justification for that, I'm kind of hampered on what I can say. I need to see what is basis for that. I would disagree with that.
At this time, it appears that the move by Tory is an attempt to be taken off of house arrest. For the time being, Judge Berdalio reiterated that the conditions would remain the same and that the modification to release conditions should be put in writing. With Tory headed to a second trial, the government indicated that the indictment against Tory will be amended in the interest of saving time, according to Chief Prosecutor Basil O'Malley.
The motion to amend was just to go back with what was found convicted of at the first trial, which was negligent homicide, the lesser included, the special allegation, and then the aggravated assault with a special allegation. So the motion to amend was, rather than go back to grand jury, just allow me to amend the original indictment, because negligent homicide was not in the original indictment. But the jury found him guilty of that.
The next hearing is set for September 10th. In keeping with crime, modern-day slavery, that is what human trafficking is, and the fight to end such travesties continues around the nation. While sex trafficking in particular is something many see on TV, it does happen on Guam. In fact, the FBI has announced that they tracked down a sex trafficker on island just last month. Here's more.
According to the FBI website, Operation Independence Day played out across the nation and even on Guam. The FBI website states, quote, "The task forces in the recent operation included federal, state, local, and tribal partners with efforts in every state and some U.S. territories. A single operation in early July led by the FBI office in Guam included nearly 20 investigators from the FBI, the Guam Police Department, the U.S. Postal Coastal Inspection Service, the Coast Guard Investigative Service, and Homeland Security investigations. The effort resulted in a federal case against a 33-year-old man who allegedly trafficked a minor girl to a 48-year-old man in exchange for cash and drugs, end quote. PNC sat down with FBI spokeswoman Michelle Ernst, who shared prior to the release from the FBI on the recent bus that human trafficking is a complex issue, one that is not as cut and dry as it might seem to be.
In the past, I think it's now 2 years almost, the Marianas Task Force, Marianas Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force was put together, and that is something that the FBI has headed up because we see the importance of putting focus on this issue. You know, when it comes to all the things we do in the FBI, our main mission is to preserve and uphold the constitutional rights of citizens, but most importantly would be those of the people that are most vulnerable, and that would be our children. Nothing can be a higher priority in our hearts, I know, to us than to protect the children in our community.
The Marianas Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force focuses on Guam and the region in hopes of keeping our children safe from predators. But it appears that there is very little data available to the public when it comes to figuring out just how bad human trafficking is.
It is hard. And that is why we stood up this task force and why we are working hard to get a better understanding of, because by the nature of sex trafficking, it's an underground, operation, and they don't want to be found out. And that is why, as the FBI, we're making it a priority to get a better idea of what is going on and see what we can do to help rescue those who have become, victims.
But as Ernst points out, sometimes the victims themselves feel trapped and fear reaching out for help.
A lot of times we see it with young children that they end up in a situation where maybe they're socially isolated or something happens in their life, maybe, their home life, they're not feeling like they're getting the attention that they might want. There's a lot of different reasons, and sometimes it can be kids who are on the honor roll. People from all walks of life find themselves sucked into this really terrifying trap of sextortion or sexual exploitation and sex trafficking.
She says the national campaign being conducted by the FBI is being done as a result of an explosion of sextortion cases across the United States. Jolene Toves, PNC News.
A deal has been made with DOC's former head honcho of Internal Affairs, Jeff Limo, in the case involving smuggling of contraband into the prison facility.
After 2 years of maintaining his innocence in the conspiracy to smuggle contraband, namely methamphetamine, into the island's prison facility, Jeff Limo has accepted a deal with the government. The plea agreement was reviewed by Superior Court Judge Anita Sokola, who accepted the deal this morning. When the allegations first surfaced, Limo's then attorney Curtis Vandeveld indicated that his client was, quote, set up, end quote. But it appears that Limo is no longer standing by that assertion. According to the plea agreement, Limo pleads guilty to 1 count of official misconduct, admitting that he received solicitation from co-defendant Ronald Meno, bribing him to set up visitation for Sean Paul Johnson outside of protocol, and did not report it. The guilty plea, however, is not for receiving bribes. Instead, the charges of receiving bribes, conspiracy to promote major prison contraband, as well as 4 additional counts of official misconduct will be dismissed if he testifies against the co-actors. While sentencing will not take place until the case is resolved, the plea agreement calls for 1 year incarceration, which, if Limo fails to abide by the stipulations in the plea, he will be made to serve. Limo will also be placed on 2 years probation. Edward Crisostomo, Paul Inwood Johnson, Jerome Nicholas, and Leanne Cabrera have yet to take deals with the government. While Limo has taken a plea in the criminal matter, it was indicated that his case before the Civil Service Commission, in which he is attempting to reverse his termination from DOC, is still pending the resolution of the case. We should note that the case is not resolved until all defendants in the case have taken deals or have gone to trial. Judge Sokola, however, did point out that because he has pled guilty to official misconduct, he will not be able to gain employment with Government of Guam or re-employment at the Department of Corrections. Following the court hearing, PNC asked Lima for his comment on the proceedings.
Jeff, how do you feel today?
Sorry, no comment.
A follow-up hearing has been set for October 28th at 9 a.m. Jolene Toves, PNC News.
Don't go anywhere. We have more news first after the break.